So over the weekend, Andrej Karpathy decided to run an interesting experiment where he gave Opus 5 the first paragraph of The Lord of the Rings and then asked for a 3JS render of it. And so I decided to quickly throw together my own version of the experiment, except I wanted to see how it did in the harness that I use. I think he used Claude Code, but the harness that I use is spawn.co. In case you haven't seen his yet, I'll play his first and then I'll show mine after. And then I want to see which one you guys think is the best version.
When Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Bag End announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 111st birthday with a party of special magnificence, there was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. Bilbo was very rich and very peculiar, and had been the wonder of the Shire for 60 years, ever since his remarkable disappearance and unexpected return. The riches he had brought back from his travels had now become a local legend, and it was popularly believed, whatever the old folk might say, that the hill at Bag End was full of tunnels stuffed with treasure. And if that was not enough for fame, there was also his prolonged vigor to marvel at. Time wore on, but it seemed to have little effect on Mr. Baggins. At 90, he was much the same as at 50. At 99, they began to call him well-preserved, but unchanged would have been nearer the mark. There were some that shook their heads and thought this was too much of a good thing. It seemed unfair that anyone should possess, apparently, perpetual youth, as well as, reputedly, inexhaustible wealth. It will have to be paid for, they said. It isn't natural, and trouble will come of it.
Okay, now I'm going to show you the one that I made, which is right here.
Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Bag End announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 111st birthday with a party of special magnificence. There was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. The news was scarcely an hour old, and already it had run up the lane and down again, growing a little in the telling, until every garden gate in Hobbiton had heard it twice. Mr. Baggins was reckoned rich and reckoned peculiar, which in Hobbiton comes to much the same thing. But he was reckoned generous too, and it was upon that last point that the village rested its hopes. Up on the hill, the round green door of Bag End stood open to the morning, and down in the field below the lane, 3 lads were already pacing out the ground where the tables were to stand. Over the garden walls the matter was thoroughly examined. 11-1, said one, a fine round age, and him not looking a day past 50, while a third said nothing, being busy counting the tables. No hoe went very deep in Hobbiton that morning, and washing hung forgotten on the lines, while the kettles were set on for callers nobody had invited. So the sun climbs, the bees go about their business in the sunflowers, and Hobbiton talks come up the lane while the morning holds. And see the hill for yourself, the gate stands open.
So yeah, this ended up being a fun experiment to run, and I'm really interested to see which one you guys think was better. I think this is a cool new benchmark for LLMs to test their 3D capabilities. As far as like my thoughts, I think on the world and everything, I think my version ended up being a lot better. Like just the overall vibes of the world, which I'll just load up the project again. And what's really cool is like everything in the world was generated purely from code, except the characters. The characters were generated through Meshy, which the agent pulled through its API. So I think my world ended up being a lot cooler. I think Spawn just knocked it out of the park in terms of the vibes and the feel of the world. It's definitely much higher fidelity. Where I'd say Karpathy's probably one is still more on the like the story aspect and the camera work. It felt much more like it had its different story beats laid out a little bit better. But I think probably why that is Probably comes down to my prompt a bit. I was more focused on the world with my prompt, so I should have emphasized more about the different story aspects and getting a good capture of all of that, like good camera work for all the different scenes. But also Spawn is more focused on creating games as an overall harness, so it kind of makes sense that this is a lot more game shaped, which, as you can see here, what's really cool about the version I made is you have an actual interactable world that you can now come and hop in. So like, I actually published this and I posted the link on my X. Like, you can come and hop in this world yourself and check it out. And so I think that's an area where Spawn definitely won out big time. Whereas, the Karpathy one is just more of like a rendered story. This is something that can turn into an actual game and an interactive experience. But I actually ended up running two in parallel, so this is not the only version that I made. I'll show you the other one that I made. I think the other one had better I think the other one that I made actually had better camera work and story beats, but there was a small issue that I needed to fix with it, and I felt like the other one's world vibes were much better, so I just ended up going with the other one, but I'll play this one.
When Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Bag End announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 11th birthday with a party of special magnificence, there was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. Bilbo was very rich and very peculiar, and had been the wonder of the Shire for 60 years, ever since his remarkable disappearance and unexpected return. The riches he had brought back from his travels had now become a local legend, and it was popularly believed, whatever the old folk might say, that the hill at Bag End was full of tunnels stuffed with treasure. And if that was not enough for fame, there was also his prolonged vigor to marvel at. Time wore on, but it seemed to have little effect on Mr. Baggins. At 90, he was much the same as at 50. At 99, they began to call him well-preserved, but unchanged would have been nearer the mark. There were some that shook their heads and thought this was too much of a good thing. It seemed unfair that anyone should possess apparently perpetual youth, as well as reputedly inexhaustible wealth.
So yeah, I think this one ended up a lot better in terms of most of the story beats. I just think the other world was a lot better. This one's still sick. Like, I think it definitely, it has kind of that storybook feel. And it had a few issues at the end with some of the camera work and like the scene progression, but I think overall just, the world knocked it out of the park. And same thing, like, this is an actual game, like an actual interactable world that you can come and run in, and it could technically turn into a game. I think that's kind of the coolest part, but yeah, I just thought the experiment was interesting overall. And if you want to check out the harness that I used to build this, it's completely free right now. I'll go ahead and leave a pinned link in the comments to the Spawn Discord where you can go and check it out directly. And also I have the other version of the game that's completely published right now, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. But anyways, if you like AI game development style content like this, then go ahead and give the video a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.